Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. What I have to do today is very important because all these actions are starting to take place now, and these actions that are starting to take place are rather dangerous, and it is all deja vu again. It is all deja vu again. And the thing about it, the saddest part about it is that the American people are being lied to again. Once again, they're being set up again. And you know what? Anytime this happens, it doesn't just hurt the countries that we invade. It doesn't just hurt the families of the dead people that ends up at the end of the things that we do that are wrong. It really is a dangerous ordeal that we continuously get into. Now, the American folk, when we hear that, oh, they don't love us around the world, they hate us around the world, it is the biggest lie. Americans are one of the most loved people because they really, look, this is one of the places that people come because they believe in the theory of freedom, they believe in the theory of democracy. But that somehow is a theory in practice, not in practice, but in words. And what we do many times is, while we're talking democracy out here, that is the last thing we're doing out there. And what do I mean by out there? I'm talking about around the world. The big story right now is Venezuela. And you know what I call it? I call it Venezuela Gate. And the reason I'm calling it Venezuela Gate is because the things that you're hearing on TV right now, the things that people are preaching to you right now on TV about Venezuela, it is not true. I repeat, it is not true. And first of all, this is no defense of this man behind me. This is no defense of Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro is probably a crook just like Carlos Andres Perez. And you know, a lot of the thing about it is we just get involved into these new concepts. Venezuela is just coming into the fold. People are just starting to learn about Venezuela. And by the way, we're going to be talking about why the Democratic Party must have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I have an important blog of the week to read about that. But right now, what we're doing in Venezuela, it's something that we really need to cover, and I need the American people to understand exactly what's going on there. If you notice, there has been chaos in Venezuela for some time. There has been a lot of chaos. I mean, this didn't just start now. This did not just start now. Venezuela, since the death of Hugo Chavez, and before the death of Hugo Chavez, it was a basket case, and it was not a basket case because socialism is a failure. It was not a basket case because la Revolución Boliviana didn't occur. It was a basket case because when other countries ensure that you fail, that is what happens in a world that is controlled by plutocracies throughout the world. And that is what happened in Venezuela. So what I want folks to understand, right? First of all, is right now everybody wants to equate. Oh, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about being a democratic socialist. You want to see what it looks like? Look at Venezuela. But you know what folks are great at doing around this place? They're great at breaking things and then saying, look, it's broken. Let me first give an example. And folks, I want you to stay with me. If you're just joining us, please go ahead and share the program. It is essential that we share these programs to let Americans really know what's really going on. So please share, 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 share on your networks. I promise you the truth. I promise you to say, whenever I talk, please go check what I say. If you can't believe it, please go throughout and check it. But this is important for us because we can't complain when things happen and then say, oh, we didn't know. If you listen to politics done right, you will know. If you listen to politics done right, you will have trust. You will have somebody to trust. Anyhow, the reason you hadn't heard about Venezuela over the last several months and several years in detail is because the way it works here in America, while the CIA and all these other organizations are working behind the scenes, they don't want anybody else working behind the scenes with them. So they're not going to tell you Venezuela is a basket case because of XYZ. They're going to be there putting things in the fire so that when they're ready to act, they act. Now, Nicolas Maduro, who is currently the president of Venezuela, he's no good. He's no Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was a guy really believing in the social welfare of the citizens, in using the natural resources of the country, which the country is a very, 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 very rich country. He was going to use those, he had started using those resources for his people, and he was the first Venezuelan president to really start to lift people out of poverty. Now, a lot in the plutocracy didn't like that. A lot of the folks who are also the servants of the plutocracy didn't like that. A lot of my friends who are Venezuelans that have moved to the United States, a lot of my friends, not friends, but folks that are leaving Venezuela and jumping into Panama, the country that I'm originally from, they didn't like Hugo Chavez either. Oh, he's changing, or what he was doing, he was not equalizing, but he was making a fairer distribution of the natural resources of the darn country. Was he ripping some of that money off? Maybe. But you know, Carlos Andres Perez did as well, the former president of Nicaragua. Donald Trump is too. When you get these people in powers, you don't get the purity that many of us would like to have. Somehow they get distorted when they get in power. But the thing about it is, in the aggregate, what are they doing for their citizens? In the aggregate, is it a march upward for their citizens? Well, what did the plutocracy in Venezuela do? In concert with the United States and all the other plutocracies around the world, they try to stifle that the reforms that were coming, the land reform. They try to stifle all these things because they were in control of production in a way. And that is one of the reasons in the United States I'm saying we don't want our plutocracy to be in full control of all production, because that is how the people lose. In other words, the government doesn't do something that you want them to do, and guess what they do? They slow down production in different factories and whatever. They create false shortages, inflation goes up, and then they say, you see, government doesn't work. That is what happens when you have private control of everything. So don't allow the private sector to somehow fool you into believing, oh, democratic socialism is so evil because what happens is, look at Venezuela. No. What happened to Venezuela is a nascent democratic socialist state that was being developed was caboosed by the Venezuelan plutocracy, by the American plutocracy, and all of this because they want the oil. Here's what the real thing is about Venezuela, folks. Venezuela has the largest, listen to me, folks, listen well. Venezuela has the largest, and by the way, you cannot get your news. If you're just joining us, folks, please, 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 please share this program, because you're not going to hear this on American TV. You won't. And the reason why is you have to hear the perspective by the American plutocracy. All the people just listening to what they hear about Venezuela here, oh, they believe it. Oh, look at what the socialist state in Venezuela has done. I mean, I have the people on the show here. They're constantly telling me, you want us to be Venezuela? That is what a socialist state looks like. Brothers and sisters, you're being fooled. Here is the deal with Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the largest proven oil reserves in the world, bar none. More than Saudi Arabia, more than all these places. Okay, that is what we have in Venezuela. More oil than anything else. But guess what else? It's not only oil. Venezuela is one of those countries that has so many resources, but nobody's going to touch it because nobody's going to give it to the people who live there. Right? It all is, and I'm going to show the similarities between America and Venezuela, and the private sector in America, what it's doing here in America that will turn us into Venezuela if we don't get a more egalitarian society. Because this is what we have to understand, folks. We are Venezuela. We're just a high-class Venezuela. But when 80% of the people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck, we are Venezuela. When folks can't get health care, we are Venezuela. I did a piece today from a woman in Elwood, Indiana. A superintendent. A kid couldn't go to school. This kid needed health care. They took him to an emergency care center. They said, no, you have no health care insurance. She took him to another one and said, this is my son. So he qualified for her health care insurance. Somebody reported her. Now she was charged with 3 felonies and a misdemeanor. The superintendent of the Elwood School District in Indiana. Okay? We are Venezuela. If you doubt it, every time you go to a doctor and you can't find one, we are Venezuela. We're just a high-class Venezuela. Now here's the deal, people. And please listen and please share. The reason we are hearing about this now is because it is time for them to act. Donald Trump wants that oil. They're sitting on the biggest mountain of oil. They're sitting on the biggest mountain of gold. And they cannot have some socialist. And by the way, I don't like Maduro. I do not like Nicolas Maduro. I think Nicolas Maduro is probably a crook. Why do I feel that way? Because Brother Carter, former President Carter's organization for the last election, they said that it was fraudulent. So I believe the people that I believe are people that I've earned trust in, like the Carter Center, that is usually unbiased in the way they do elections around the world. And they said Maduro's election was likely fraudulent. It is true. Okay? But by Donald Trump then adapting and saying that this other guy here, what's this name, Guaido, to go out there and for him to say that this guy there, this 35-year-old man, Guaido, is now the president of Venezuela. The United States have assigned the new president of of Venezuela, claiming that their constitution said that if there is something with the election, the Nancy Pelosi of Venezuela, which is Juan Guaido, is now the president. Okay, so once the United States accepts somebody as president, the rest of the world is going to look twice. But of course, China, Russia, and Mexico, and many other countries says, wait a minute. First of all, China, listen, here's the deal. With that mountain of oil, the last thing that America and the West wants in Venezuela is for a socialist government aligned with China, who is sitting on a mountain of oil, to be in an alliance. And here's what China's been doing. China has been in Panama. China has been in South America. China has been in Africa, building these societies, right? Lending them money. And China is no good actor. I'm not trying to say that they're a good actor. They're all working in their self-interest. But as they work in their self-interest, they're helping these quote-unquote third world countries. So they're building roads. They're helping them modernize their industries and all these types of things. So America is starting to say, oh my God, we've left the whole of the Western Hemisphere alone. Now China is deep involved in a lot of Latin American countries, and we cannot have a government that is not friendly to the United States, like Venezuela, to have some association with China sitting on the largest reserves of oil in the world, which means China on the market, we don't have any leverage over them. So what do? We invade. What do we do? And invade does not mean we necessarily have to send American military forces there. They have a lot of help. There's a right-wing government in Brazil right now, right next door. They can help with the sabotage. There's also some other there's some other governments that are in tow to the United States that will sabotage Venezuela. Now, you know, I've already said I don't believe the election was fair in Venezuela. That's a given. But the election in the United States was not fair either. We have an illegitimate president in the United States, but again, suppose some other country, let's say Germany comes and say, we do not recognize Donald Trump as president. He won less than the popular vote. And we realize that a country that we don't particularly like, Russia, had something to do with the American election. And because they had something to do with the American election that made Trump president instead of Hillary Clinton, we declare Nancy Pelosi president of the United States. I mean, what's the difference? What is the difference? We had a fraudulent election. Venezuela had a fraudulent election. Can anybody overthrow what resulted from our fraudulent election? No. So why do we think we can go ahead and somehow institute that in Venezuela? So again, the basic idea behind the entire Venezuela gate is as follows. The United States wants Venezuela's oil and gold. They want to make sure that it doesn't fall into the hands of the Chinese. The Russians maybe, not the Chinese. And the Russians are against the Trump's declaration, quote unquote. And China came out against it. Turkey came out against it. Iran came out against it. And several other countries came out against the declaration that somehow El Señor Juan Guaido is now the president of Venezuela. So folks, listen up. Watch the news. Watch the news that is not going to be correct. What I did today and several days is I read Telesur. Telesur is a Spanish newspaper. And I read La Prensa and several other Spanish newspapers that are more familiar with the area. You cannot hope that some ivory tower guy at the New York Times or the Washington Post who steps down there for a little bit and have a bias towards what our policies has been. Remember the bias that the New York Times had for the Iraq war? We can't follow that. We can't have that. So please, my friends, listen to Politics Done Right on this issue because we are right. But again, please do your research. If you want some things to read, go to Telesur, go to La Prensa, go to some of these other Latin American papers that are reporting from on the floor. If you can't read Spanish, Google translates it for you. And it does a fairly good job. But I want to get the full essence, so I read the Spanish versions of the paper so that we get the full essence of what's really going on in my part of the world. And I tell you what's going on in my part of the world and what Trump is attempting to do. Remember, this is a guy who came to Panama looking for Noriega, and in the process of looking for Noriega, they said they killed 1,000 Americans. The UN said they killed, Panamanians. The UN said they killed 4,000 Panamanians. We know, based on where those bombs were flying, that at least 10,000 Panamanians got killed, and they were all bulldozed into. Folks, it ain't kind. It's what we do outside of our country to other people on the pretext of democracy is a lot of times the reason why some of the other people have a tendency, folks, to claim they don't like us. Now we're about to repeat the same thing once again. Once again. Juan Guaido, plutocracy. Nicolas Maduro, I don't trust him, but I sure trust Nicolas Maduro better than I trust any of these other guys. But what I would like to see is a negotiated resolution because, like I said, Maduro is also a crook. But he is nowhere a crook, like let's say Carlos Andrés Pérez, who got convicted, the former president, or or several of the other plutocrats that you have out there. And we should not forget that Donald Trump himself is one of the biggest crooks, as he has been using his power within the American government for personal gain. So let's be real. Let's really be real. So we're going to get into the program with, I wanted to do the Venezuela portion of the program first because a lot of people don't really understand, and we can't, right? We can't expect them to understand this because our news media is not going to cover this stuff. I'm sorry. Our news media is, for all practical purpose, is useless. I mean, yes, we cover a few things and it's good, but when it comes to really going into the details of what's going on around the world, all they do is they toe the CIA line. That's all they do. They toe the line of the CIA. And that is not healthy for a democracy. That is definitely not healthy for our democracy. So let me go ahead and pull up the program for today. I hope I can get to it. I think I can get to it. The title of the program today is, and it's pulling up right now, the title of the program is Democrats Need Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And the second part of it is, what the hell, Venezuela? And I did the what the hell Venezuela first. Subtitle of the show, America is setting up to have concurrent plutocracies pilfer the Venezuelans once again. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is destroying the acquiescent model of the Democratic Party. And it goes as follows. Once again, America is engaging in a country loaded with oil. It is clear that Venezuelans are just the pawns. America wants to topple the current pathetic socialist in name only Nicolas Maduro and replace him with the plutocracy of former years. This thing could escalate out of control, and it is usually the population who will suffer and die as they did in Panama. And as you know, I have a bias towards Panama because that is where I'm from, and that is where I saw a whole lot of my folks get killed by bombs under the pretext of holding on to Manuel Antonio Noriega. So I understand all of that. Now, the title, or how should I say this? I want people to start remembering one thing. You can no longer, I want to be careful here because we have to, our media is the fourth estate, meaning the mainstream media, the type of media that we do here, independent media, all of that is a part of our entire system. And I want to be responsible, I want to be very responsible in the way that, I don't want to say I attack, but I want to be responsible in the way I deal with the mainstream media. And the reason I'm saying that is as follows. We do not want folks to lose trust in the media. What we want them to do is force the media to be who they're supposed to be. I want ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC. I leave out Fox News because that's not the media. That is just entertainment. I want these stations, these networks, to live up to who they can be. I understand about advertising that they can't do all that they should do. I really understand that. But I do not want us to lose absolute trust in this because that's the only thing we've got. So I have to be responsible here. When I speak against the media, remember I'm speaking against it in an insular manner, not in a general manner. I really want to get that because I have to be responsible here. We are going to need a media, both the ones that can't tell you the full story, but at least get you in the ballpark. We need that. And we can't be losing trust in the presidency, the Congress, and all our institutions, including the media, because that is what makes society. So I am going to try to be tempered going forward in the way I talk about the media. I'll try. We have some great newspaper reporters, print reporters. And every now and then they get coverage. But most of the times they don't. What I will try to do as somebody who has a sort of a platform as well is provide make sure that their things get more distribution along with our entire independent blogging networks, which is what I've started to do, what I've been doing for quite a while. And the reason why is this. we have some tough times coming down the road with Donald Trump and other things. When people start to when people finally realize the evil that is occurring behind the scenes, they're going to have something to trust. I want you to trust politics done right, first of all, I'm going to tell you. And by the way, folks, if you're just listening, please go ahead and share this right away. And before I go to the blog of the week, I need to do my ask. And what I want to do with my ask is to say, and this is going to be a short one, please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politics done right. That is patreon.com/politics done right. And support our show. Subscribe to our show. We make sure what we do is distill the news a little bit further. Not only distill the news a little bit further, but to tell the truth. You can't hear it all on the mainstream media because they do have some problems. They do have to supply their advertisers. They can't. I mean, they can't talk about Cialis too badly if it has a problem. If for some reason Cialis advertises on their network, there's just a certain amount of things that can't get done. As far as we're concerned, we only owe everything to you. To nobody else, to you. So if you're a subscriber to, we ask you to subscribe. Of course, you can watch as much as you want. You can listen to our podcasts, all of that. It's all over Twitch. It's on Periscope. It's on Spotify. You can find us everywhere now. What I ask is please support us. That's patreon.com/politics done right. Get a subscription. It's cheap, up to $1. Or if you just want to give a one-time donation, go to politicsdoneright.com. and go to our PayPal and say, okay, we want to make sure that we can get this information out there. Okay, done with that. Let's get busy and go with my good new friend. And that is, of course, you know, La Señorita, and I think she's still La Señorita Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, folks, and this is a very important blog of the week that I'm coming with. So please share this program. I have a solid blog of the week. You cannot see it yet on the website because it's quarantined for Daily Kos, but you get a chance to hear it first. It's quarantined because it's going to be on the front page at dailykos.com. So you get to hear it first. Please go ahead and share the show so that people can get a chance to hear what I'm going to say, because this is important, and especially for those folks who have something to say about our girl or woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, here is the weekly blog post. Title of the weekly blog post is Why They Fear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And here is the reason why, folks. Why would the 29-year-old Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez so rattle both the Republicans, the right, and the Democratic center? Why? Why would she? The short answer is very, very simple. Ocasio-Cortez came seemingly out of nowhere. What did she do? She defeated Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's presumable successor, Joseph Crowley. What else did she do? She has a magnetic personality. What else? Has a narrative that correlates with the reality of most Americans. She won without corporate money. She ran a real grassroots campaign. She ran on an unabashedly democratic socialist platform. She built a 2 million plus Twitter base and growing, which means she can direct a large portion of the national narrative. She uses social media to get her message out and counter attacks in real time. That is power. FAIR's Alan McLeod pointed out an inconvenient truth, however. He said, and this is from FAIR, It is impressive how much Ocasio-Cortez has upset the right wing in such a short time. But when it comes to actual policy issues and not just Twitter spats, it appears the centrist establishment is as uncomfortable with a progressive agenda as the most frothing at the mouth conservative. And that is so true. Continuing. He also pointed out, close quote, he also pointed out that many purported liberal outlets questioned her intelligence and that of her followers. And by the way, I'm her follower as well, okay? Many sides are attempting to dim her light, discredit her before the fission reaction becomes self-sustaining. As you know, when a nuclear fission reactor finally self-contained, it means it ain't stopping. You got to put the cadmium rods on, but that's another story. That's a scientific story that we don't need to get into right now. What is the short answer why they fear Alexandria Cortez? Ocasio-Cortez is a leader in the largest potential voting bloc in the country. And who's that voting bloc? The millennials. They are living the realities, the effects of all the wrong-headed, greedy, extractive policies of the past. Millennials see themselves in her, that she lived paycheck to paycheck, unable to immediately get an apartment in DC, is the reality of many of her peers. Anyone who moved back home. And think about how many of your kids, those of you that are older with older kids right now, where the kids moved back in. Because they didn't have the wherewithal that you had. Okay? The long answer is even more dangerous. And this is the part I want you guys to listen to in detail. The long answer is even more dangerous. The policies that Ocasio-Cortez promotes puts unfettered capitalism at risk. You have a woman that has the attention of the millennials and more. You have a woman that can feel the pain of those people that she supports. And what do you think happens, folks? What do you think happens? She has to be feared because that's the next generation coming. And if her ideas metastasize in them, bye-bye, unfettered capitalism, bye-bye. So, the long answer is even more dangerous. The policies that Ocasio-Cortez promotes puts unfettered capitalism at risk. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is beholden to no one. She beat a powerful incumbent who outspent her. Unlike many other politicians, she currently displays no instincts of being ideologically corruptible by those wielding the destructive tenets of the Powell Manifesto. And I have a link to the Powell Manifesto for those who are not apt on that particular theology, if you will. That freedom gives her the ability to articulate realities that few are willing to say out loud. Democrats, you better learn. You better learn because people want change, and you can't. And they're going to get one of two change. They're going to get a right-wing change because the right-wing are very smart folk. They're going to come out with a plausibly sounding narrative as well. So you better jump on one. And the best narrative to jump on is a truthful narrative. The best narrative to jump on is one that talks to people. That freedom gives her the ability to articulate realities that few are willing to say out loud. The rich are undeserving of much of their wealth. I repeat, the rich are undeserving of most of their wealth. Period. I will argue that point with anybody. I will dispute that point with anybody. I will have a conversation with anybody on that issue. I repeat. And the rich are undeserving of much of their wealth. That is not envy of the wealthy, but instead a moral truth. And here it goes. Amazon's Bezos is worth $160 billion. He accumulated wealth on the backs of his employees, some who must get food stamps to survive. Arnie Arneson said recently, and I'm going off the script for a second here. Arnie Arneson said recently, Jeff Bezos one time on some program said, oh, I have some $1 billion to give away. I want to know what should I do with it? How should I do it? Somebody said, why don't you pay your employees? Because what you are giving away is the excess labor of those employees. It's the work of those employees that you didn't give them money for. Because you hired them at $12 an hour or whatever, and you said, okay, whatever we make, I got just use $12. That's it. And then I keep everything else. In as much as you are responsible for the wealth I've accumulated, you are doing it. You see, we have taught people to be selfish. We have taught people that, well, if you're working for XYZ, everything else belongs to somebody else. Everything else belongs elsewhere. Folks, it's an economic system that is not divine, but we continue. Amazon Jeff Bezos is worth $160 billion. He accumulated wealth on the backs of his employees, some who must get food stamps to survive. Bezos does not have the technological prowess or ability to build the statistical modeling, the intellect that designed the millions of products he sells, nor the labor to move those products. In effect, what I'm saying, he is just a parasite. Bezos is nothing more than a parasite. The engineers who build the robots that move the products around his warehouses. The engineers who or the scientists who know about the probability and statistics of where products are going to be purchased from, to know where to locate buildings, to know where to locate products in buildings, is the intellect of somebody else. So he is the amalgamation of the intellect and labor of hundreds of people, thousands of people. And he, this one man, collects from the aggregate intellect and labor of everybody else. And then when they are asking him to pay more taxes, he said, me? Or when they're asking him, and when he goes into a city, instead of looking at it as we have been blessed, let's not ask the city for giveaways. Let's give to the city. Let's not beg the city to go ahead and reduce our taxes, which affect the school system, which affects all these other things, to even make me more money. You see, we have not been taught, the Powell Manifesto has taught us to be slaves. It has taught us that somehow these guys who have made it using the capitalist system are somehow above us. They're more intelligent than us. No, they're not. They're just better parasites. They are just better parasites. I mean, if you are a wealthy person and you are going to build a factory, you don't go into that neighborhood and say, neighborhood, what can you give me so I can give you the honor of building my factory in your place? In which case then, because we think the jobs are going to be good for our community, we say, okay, we'll starve the school and give you the money to make you a bit more wealthy. We have to change our mindset of enslavement. We must change our mindset of enslavement. Slavery is not a color anymore. Slavery is in the mind. This used to be slavery. My color used to denote slavery. Slavery is no longer this. It is this. Supremacy is no longer white supremacy. You doubt me? I wrote a blog about that. Yes, the black intelligentsia is going to get on my case for saying that. It is different now, brothers and sisters. And we have to have it between our ears. The intelligence must come from us. We can't allow them to define it. None of the elitists we can allow to define things the way they have. Because so far, guess what? It ain't work anyway. So continuing about Jeff Bezos. Bezos does not have the technological prowess or ability to build a statistical modeling, the intellect that designed the millions of products he sells, nor the labor to move his product. Yet, we have an economic system that rewards him at the top of the chain. An economic system isn't divine. It didn't come from some god. Its creators bias it towards themselves. So the creators of our economic systems figure what their strengths were. Oh, we can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and we got a little bit of capital. Okay, we'll create this. Remember, an economic system shouldn't be designed, or we shouldn't adapt to society for an economic system. We should adapt an economic system for a society. In other words, human beings first. Yet we have an economic system that rewards him at the top of the chain, right? An economic system isn't divine. Its creators bias towards themselves. At some point, Americans will come to the realization that said reality created our wealth disparity and is tantamount to one's stolen human capital. Again, the wealthy, that amalgamation of wealth, if you work for a company, whether you're doing a menial job or whatever, if you work for a company, a corporation, their wealth is the excess labor that you provided them. It is the wealth and is the labor and intellect that you provided them that you didn't get paid for. That is their additional wealth. Remember that. So you owe no sympathy. You owe zero sympathy to the wealthy. Zero. Because they are on legally stolen stuff. An unplugged Ocasio-Cortez will have Americans questioning the why of every part of our economy. Why can the individual or corporation profit from natural resources that should belong to us all? Why do private banks control we the people's money supply? Why do we allow profit in the delivery of health care? Why do we give human rights to artificial persons? Who are artificial persons? Corporations. Why do we allow pharmaceutical companies to take drugs invented with our tax dollars and then take them over and make infinite profits with no recompense to the creators of the drugs, we the people? Why is income from capital gains taxed at a preferential rate over the working person's income? A rich person may risk their capital, but human beings risk their bodies, souls, and mental well-being. Why is the first question asked is, how will that affect business whenever one discusses any program of social value, while the question is never asked when we go to war? You see, we don't, as basic average American citizens, we don't ask the important questions a lot of times. We just accept. We just accept. We just go ahead and say, okay, the congressman says so, it must be right. Somebody says so, it must be right. No, it's wrong. Let's remember, we are now what I call in the era of benevolent slavery, a slavery that we do willfully. They don't need whips anymore because the Paul Manifesto made them change our minds. They don't need the whips, okay? They don't need the whips. So now it's not just black folks or others that are slaves. It is this angst that they talk about white people, the angst that the working class is feeling, that they're suddenly looking at the other as being the problem. That's by design, right? No, don't look at them others. Look at the top. That's where the problem is. These are the people that are milking you dry. It's not us. It's not them. It is them. And when we understand that, change is going to come. Now look, America's current economic system values capital over humanity. Our mainstream media, the wards of the plutocracy, are very good at keeping the dialogue between the left and right rails, as I described in an article pointing out how the establishment plays most Americans. And by establishment, I mean both Democrats and Republicans alike. They operate within a rail. The left people, they get their little satisfaction on the left side, and the right people get the little satisfaction on the right side. But together they're having dinner. They're going out and they're laughing at us peons. Why do you think I love Trump supporters? Why do you think I love every anarchist? Why do you think I love socialists, communists, libertarian? I love everybody. You know why? Because I understand where the problem really is. I'm not going to fight with you, my brother Trump supporter. You're my brother, my sister. I'm not going to fight with you. You know why? Because we're all in this boat and they are screwing us all. And that's what Politics Done Right is for, to say we're not going to continue to let them screw us. We're going to get enlightened. And as we get enlightened, we're going to fight together, man. And as we fight together, we're going to win. So look. One can go on and on with questions that show the immoral and draconian nature of our economy that we were indoctrinated into believing serves the common person, or that it is the only way. It serves a few by design. Americans no longer have to theorize as to the results and outcome of our system. They are living it. The only problem in living it is they don't quite understand who's at fault. And the powers that be, with the help of parts of the media, would have you believe that the problem is the other. But the problem isn't the other. The problem is the economic system by them. The new congresswoman is empathetic. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is empathetic. She gives a semblance of an ability to feel the pain the majority of Americans who are unwitting victims of this draconian economic system. While attending a Coffee Party USA board meeting, one of our directors said, "You know what makes Ocasio dangerous?" She asked then, and then she answered her own question. She said, "She speaks piercingly but civilly. She shows no animosity. She does not come across like a flaming left-wing hack. She just tells it like it is. And that is why she's feared. This young 29-year-old, there's an article by another friend of mine in Austin. I don't remember his name right now. And he said, the reason we know why she puts fear on the right. But she puts a lot of fear on the left because they realize she is who they were supposed to be. She is where their values really lie. She just tells it like it is. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a catalyst that should be feared. As our economic disparity widens and as people fall under more economic stress, they will ask these and many other tough questions. The American plutocracy will not like the answers they come out with because it will be the beginning of the end of the pilfering. They will use their vast legally stolen wealth to misinform in an attempt to fool a large segment of the population, a large enough segment of the population to vote against their interests. It behooves all progressives to get on board and define the truthful narrative at the grassroots level to inoculate America before we get a further infection. That is the blog of the week. That will be out on Sunday at the Daily Kos. Please read it there. Please share it there. I can't put it on my blog until I think Tuesday. 2 days. I think they have a 48-hour hold on the piece, but you get a chance to listen to it first. Folks, this is a call-in show. I'd love to hear from you. 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Give me a call. I mean, I know a lot of you are listening, so all over the place. Why don't you give me a call and let's talk about it. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your opinions. I'm about to get to the page to see what you're writing down on the page, but I'd love to get some of you to call in and make it more interesting for the other people who are listening around the world. But anyhow, let me go ahead and see what you're saying, because I imagine, my hunch is that some of my suspects will have quite a bit to say. Okay, let's go ahead and start reading these. Let me start from the beginning. Okay, Daniel Ledo, LOL, he's laughing out loud. How many times do we have to hear that it wasn't real socialism, it was done right, before we see that argument for it? BS. Well, if you believe that, I can't argue with that. But it's working very well in Denmark. I have an old friend from Venezuela who has seasoned hatred of Trump. She admitted to me yesterday that right now she's loving him for recognizing the new president. Wow. That does not surprise me. Those people that are able to jump and get out of Venezuela were those people either of the plutocracy or supporting the plutocracy. They were the ones that were doing very well. Remember, it's just like the United States, right? 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The other 20% are wards of the plutocracy. The plutocracy used them to hold the gates for them. In other words, they are not bad people. They're just in the slavery days, right? They had the worker slaves, the slaves that were in the field, cutting the cotton, doing all that stuff. And then they had the slaves in the house. And that created a division, right? That made that the slaves in the house, and I won't use the derogatory term that everybody uses, but it's the house, you know what, and the field, you know what. That's how they referred to them. And so what we have is the wards of the corporations right now, the ones that they give enough money to feel that they're several inches above the rest of Americans. You have these 20% that are way ahead of the last 80%, and then you have that 10% that is way ahead of the 20% and 80%, and then you have that 1.1% that is the big shots, and then the 0.1%, they are the evil, So there are gradations to this thing, right? And what I'm saying is, so the people that are in the top 20%, the top 10%, even the top 5%, they're nothing but they're. And I'm not saying this to be derogatory. I'm just use this euphemistically, but they would be considered the house, you know what, okay? because they're still a ward of the plutocracy. And whenever master tell them that they are out of a job, many of them are, oh my God, their life has come to an end. But somehow the CEOs always get a golden parachute. The average person that gets thrown out of a job when they don't follow their masters or they don't fulfill their master's dream, they're just thrown out. And some people making good money realize that how quickly that good money disappears when the plutocracy decides they don't want them. And I know a lot of you listening to me here, and those of you that are professionals in working for corporate America, you never feel safe because you've learned to live on $200,000 a year, $250,000 a year, $300,000, $500,000 a year, and suddenly you have somebody who can say, "Uh-oh, bye-bye," and suddenly you're nowhere because guess what? Even in today's world, I mean, you have a hard, so that is what I mean. All right, let's go. My brother Roberto Luis. Mr. Daniel, you're not here to you're not hearing the facts what Mr. Egberto is saying. Thank you very much, Roberto. Daniel Ledo, oh my God, did he really just call Trump illegitimate? Mr. Ledo, yes, I just called Trump illegitimate. And you know why I call him illegitimate? Because he is. Now, do I want the overthrow of Donald Trump? No. Because again, he beat the system, but he's illegitimate. Rene Perpetua, the Russians elected Trump. Thank you for making that point, Rene, because you're right. It will come out. What happened to the emoluments clause? Nobody's following it up, but now they will. Did Manafort give Poland info to Debriska? All the evidence is there. I mean, put it this way: if all of this was on Obama or all of this was on Clinton, the right wing would have been not only telling the truth about what's going on, they would have started also making conspiracy theories about what happened. You know how they operate. So the reality is yes, but I think all of this stuff needs to be done methodically. And the truth of the matter, I don't want the guy impeached because I think, well, you know what? Sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. Because again, anyway, I'll go to another subject. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a complete ignoramus, and that is being generous. I think, Mr. Ledo, that woman is quite well schooled and very intelligent. Very, very intelligent. I met her personally. I spoke to her on air and off air. She's a very intelligent woman. She's fearless, smarter than most, and on to plutocrats. Exactly. Thank you so kindly, Perpetua. Daniel Ledo, Egberto Willies wants us to trust him, but it just might be easier to do that if he did not constantly reveal his extremism. I am extreme? Asking that Americans share the wealth, the vast wealth of this country instead of having it go to just a few is being extreme? Let me tell you what is extreme. Extreme is that point that the billionaires control 80% of this country. That is extreme. And that Americans don't see that as extreme, as hard as they work. It just shows you how in between our ears, the brains between our ears from many of us have you're not stupid, you're not dumb, none of that. I don't use those words. But we are so programmed that we cannot really see what really is extreme. It is extreme that oil in this ground that wasn't placed by anybody, somehow these guys can go into these free areas and collect this oil, have their shareholders and themselves make a lot of money off of it, ask the government not to have a whole lot of taxes on them, and we don't see that as extreme. Is it not extreme when all these other people that work very hard are on food stamps and the people who pay them are getting kickbacks? I tell you something, folks. You know the big tax cut that happened? A lot of the folks that think they like the tax cut, they're going to get a big surprise. You know, plumbers, independent plumbers who used to be able to write off their tools and write off their travel and so forth, in order to give the billionaires all that extra money and reduce the corporate tax rate to 21%, guess what happened? It's gone. So all these deductions that you could partake of that took away thousands of dollars in taxes that you had, you're going to pay in taxes now. So when Donald Trump said, oh, I didn't raise your marginal tax rate, he was telling the truth. What he didn't tell you is he got you through the back door. So you're going to pay more taxes. Again, your money going to supply The rich corporation. They went down to 20% or 21% or something like that. Let me tell you what that means. The corporations are people, okay? The way the Supreme Court has adjudicated right now is as ruled is that uh, corporations have the same rights as people, but they don't want to pay the same rate as people. So a corporation that's worth millions pay less taxes than you do, even though they're a person. Legally, they are a person. A lot of people don't realize that. And that is why we are here, to inform, to inform, to inform. All right, let me continue reading. Mike Cizak. Oh, please. AOC is a laughing stock from both sides. AOC grew up in a posh, rich East Side. You know that it's amazing how lies can metastasize. No, she's not a wealthy girl at all, and she didn't come from wealthy upbringings at all. Her middle class life was no more. Well, anyway, we won't have to go there because what I don't understand, CSEC and all you guys that put out this information, why is it that you are so comfortable in your ignorance? And ignorance, I'm not saying to be derogatory. I mean in the exact definition of ignorance. You simply don't know. All right. Rene Perpetua, your points are, yes, they are pointless. All of Amazon's employees are compensated for their work, but for some reason, Egberto ignores that. They're compensated for their work at an arbitrary value. Now, that arbitrary value, when the profits of that company so surpass what they're being paid, I think it is time for them to be paid more because their work, their labor, their intellect is what's floating that company. It doesn't belong to Jeff Bezos. It belongs to them. And that's why I said it is all for who wrote the economic system. When the economic system is written for a bias for those who do nothing, then those who do nothing reap the successes of the economic system. And you know, it's funny because they like to look at, you know, those guys that are hanging around at the bar or whatever, not working or whatever, and say, oh, those lousy guys. What about that rich guy at the pool who has some stocks that just earning money? There's nothing different with what the two of them are doing, right? Let's say I'm a rich person who leave a whole bunch of money for my kid, and my kid just sit down at the pool and makes money off of the capital gains and interest of the thing. What's the difference between them and a bomb? Absolutely nothing. That is why I believe in a huge estate tax. Either estate tax or you throw it into a foundation that does positive things. You see, you have to start, you know, we have been so programmed into believing, oh, you want an estate tax? That is so crazy. Or you want a 90% tax rate? That is so crazy. No, it's not. After a certain amount of money that you make, the additional money you tax the whole hell out of it. And that prevents people from trying to get that kind of, from extracting that kind of money legally out of the company, but unfortunately immorally. Okay. Rene Perpetua, you call Egberto a propagandist. So far from the truth. I don't know why he puts up with you. You know why I put up? I'm tolerant. And not only that, Daniel Ledo, Max Cisak, and all these guys that visit the show, I love them. And not only that, let me tell you something. They may go back and forth with me all of the times. I enjoy that because they keep me sharp. But most importantly, what they do is I've planted seeds in their heads whether they believe it or not. Anybody who listens, seeds are being planted. Folks, we're coming to the end of the show. I could have gone on and on and on. What I want to ask you folks is please remember this is a progressive show that needs your support. So I ask of you, I plead to you to go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. That is patreon.com/politics done right, patreon.com/politics done right. It's right there on the screen. Please go ahead and subscribe to the program. It is very, very inexpensive. It's worthwhile because you're going to get somebody out there that is going to really be telling you the truth. So please go to patreon.com/politics done right. And if you only want to give as opposed to subscribe, let's say you just want to give a contribution to the show to make sure we can stay on air. Look, let me tell you, we just had a huge expense. The laptop crapped out on running our broadcasting software. We had to go get another unit. And that is, you know, we really need to come up with those funds as well to pay for those. So please go ahead and either contribute at Politics Done Right at the donate button, or go to the subscribe button and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, or at the subscribe button, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you are there. Thank you so kindly for being a part of this show. You know how I end this baby every single time. I say, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.